Welcome to the podcast where we dive deep with the builders, hustlers, and business owners, turning blue-collar grit into scalable badass businesses. We'll break down their origin stories, real-world struggles, systems that actually work, and advice they'd give to new local service business owners. I'm your host, Romario Martin, and this is the BADASS Remodeler Podcast. He went from laid-off design engineer to running one of the most process-driven remodeling firms. In this episode, I sit down with George Lokko, owner of Y2 Design and Build, to unpack how he built a no-change order company where every project runs on a 97-step design system that clients actually love. We talk process, hiring with integrity, building steady pipelines, and what the rise of ADUs mean for the future of remodeling in Columbus. This is the BADASS Remodeler Podcast. Real remodelers, real lessons, real results. Welcome to the BADASS Remodeler Podcast, unfiltered conversation with builders, hustlers, and remodelers, turning blue-collar grit into scalable badass businesses. I'm Romario Martin, founder of Bad to Badass, the performance growth agency that helps remodeling businesses turn paid ads into book jobs into predictable, scalable profit. My guest today is George Lokko, the owner and president of Y2 Design Build out of Columbus, Ohio. George started his company in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, after getting laid off as a design engineer.
That's correct.
Since then, he's built one of the most process-driven design build firms I've ever seen. So, George, man, your story really stood out to me. You didn't grow up in construction family. However, you came from like engineering banking roots.
Yeah.
So love to take us back to the start. You know, what happened that, when you decided to go all in on remodeling, and what pulled you from that corporate world into design build?
Yeah. So my background was in construction, not construction, engineering. So I graduated from the University of Toledo with an engineering degree. Initially, I had the dream of becoming a doctor, just like everyone else. Had a big dream and big goal. I initially wanted to become a surgeon, so I was very adamant about how I went about going through that process. The reason why I wanted to become a surgeon has, just like every child, wanted to be a pilot. I kind of just figured I wanted to, I think I enjoyed fixing problems was my goal. And so when I found that vehicle to be in that vehicle and ride that vehicle for a while, I figured, at the end of the day, it was a very good paying salary job and I was helping people while I was doing that. So that was my ultimate position in life. But beyond that, I'm an immigrant child from West Africa. My family, grew up. We didn't grow up poor. I'm not that typical child where I didn't grow up poor. Matter of fact, we were pretty middle class, so we had it pretty much figured out. But obviously, I wanted more for my life than just the foundation of things, and so I wanted to take on certain risk that essentially would put me in positions that would enable me to put other people in positions as well. So I figured, being a surgeon would have been a good route to do that. And then I found myself sitting down one day and wondering why I should be a surgeon. This was probably like early days in my college careers, and I just figured that, I do love solving problems, and I do love helping people, and I do love the fact that it's a stable job. But my purpose was only driven because I think I saw someone do it, or I think that I would have been a good person to do that same thing. But once you go through the questionnaires that you ask yourself as a young fellow, you just come to the conclusion that maybe this is not what you thought you'd be, and that's totally fine. So my goal was to eventually find a purpose that God has designed me for. It was right around that time where I had my back against the wall. I was still working. It wasn't a straightforward path. Matter of fact, I couldn't figure it out what I wanted to do. Besides the fact that I had a fulfilling job, I just didn't think that was fulfilling enough for me. Even though selfishly, role I had or the role I played in my job was very, very critical. You had to be result driven and paying attention to details. And because you're pretty much designing products that helped patients feel better, so you had to be super critical and very intentional about a lot of things you do. My background was just in engineering, was to become super detailed in everything I do. So when I started to go a different direction in life, I figured that maybe the route to take would have been to do something that I felt more passionate about, I'll say. And so one that was with I found myself in construction. But before all of that happened, it was kind of like going to school all over again. So if you'd imagine you are in pre-K or a toddler and you're now learning the ropes of numbers and language and art and science, you're like now starting to learn everything, how hard it felt to learn to know those things. So that's what it felt like at the beginning of this journey. Was I had to really learn the ABCs and the one, two, threes of construction. And then later down the line, just figure out ways to make, and I think that that's where the engineering me came in play. Was I had to be super critical and very detail oriented. So when I realized that there's a lot of missing pieces of information that I needed to know, I had to relearn everything. So yeah, that's a nutshell of where I was and kind of how that got me through and where I am now, pretty much.
Nice. And then I guess what were those first few months like, um, besides just that learning process?
Man, it was fun, but at the same time, not the most pleasant experience. It was fun because it was an exciting time to be in construction, and most importantly, just learning something new. But it was very unpleasant having to really learn all of the things about construction. But beyond that, just learning really customer service in the first place. Because yes, we may have had experience in working for other companies or smaller jobs, but there's something about construction and customer service because, again, construction is where, in this case, when you're looking at buying a home or building a home or renovating a home, that becomes your first or second biggest investment that you would put in. So customer service was the most important skill to have. And I think I just had to learn how to do that and improve upon it every day. And, obviously just become a pioneer or a staple in your city or wherever you are. Um, I guess to answer your point, I had to just relearn a lot of things. They weren't really pleasant moments. I think my very first job, I messed up. I used to do a lot of flips for investors, and my very first project that my client at that time took a chance with me was gutting the entire home. That was my very first project. Was to gut down all the way down to the studs, the entire home, fix a porch, fix the exterior, all for $1, right? And that was the hard introduction to construction. And, right away I knew if I wanted to make it out, I had to learn the ABCs and really like dive in to like numbers. So yeah, that was just my experience.
Yeah. So when did you realize you wanted to build something that was designed first instead of just, another remodeling company?
It took me a while, man. So it took me about probably 3 years in realizing that the missing piece of information was design. And as a design engineer myself and just coming from that background, there is no way I could go to a mill shop and tell them to make a product without having a design in place. And I mean, the design was just so that we can all communicate and be on the same page and expectation. And of course, what the product is going to look like, right? So it was automatically a no-brainer to learn design or have design implemented into the process. But before all of that happened, construction was, in this case, you can call it a remodel versus a design build company, is that my cousin is an architect in California. And it's a funny story because when I even started a construction company, I didn't have a registered company at that point. I was going off on my name and just trust and believing that I can execute what I could. And my cousin at that time, well, he's still my cousin, but at that very moment, he told me, I know you want to do this or get in construction. You should be a design build firm. At that time, I didn't know what that meant and what it would imply today, but I decided to pick that name and run with it. Right. And I got the name White. And I don't even know, today it sounds very like the name Y2 sounds very intentional of why I chose it. But at that time, I was not really picking it because of, where it could be. I just picked it because I got creative with my grandmother's name, and then I decided to rename it Y2. And that's all it took, honestly. And design build was just added to it because my cousin told me to put it into it. So I would say I was here by accident and by luck, honestly. I was here by luck. A huge luck was on my side. And I don't take any of these stuff like I had everything planned out. I absolutely did not. But I knew that I wanted to be in this field. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. So I just jumped in, all in, head on. I fell with my face flat and woke up, kept going. You name it. I mean, the ropes of this industry has taught me well. But again, the name just happened to be just fell in my
God's
lap.
plan,
God's
basically.
plan, right? Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about how you built this machine. So, most remodelers struggle to manage chaos, but you literally built out 54-step process before touching a hammer. So, like walk us through that.
Yes. Right before, like I said, it took me 3 years, okay, to really pause and say, hey, I'm just gonna sit back and really like analyze this whole process of construction. And even in the process, I did do some research about what design build firms are. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I'm glad I did that because 2 years later, I didn't know I was gonna really implement that whole process into it. So once I did that, I figured that that was the best route to go. And then I had to really put in my engineering thinking hat again. With engineering, what you're trying to do is systemize processes. And systemizing things is really just to make your life easy, but be repeatable. So I want the next person who comes on board. It could be a client, it could be a team leader or a team player or whoever it is, a team member. I want that process to be predictable and repeatable. And so I just had to look back and think through what would make um, my life easier. And I don't take all credit for all the processes that I have put in place. I actually went through coaching for 2.5 years, and I still undergo coaching with industry leaders. My current coach is in California. He's been doing this for 30 years. Built a $30 million company. I don't sit here and brag like I knew everything. Like I said, everything literally landed on my head, on my lap. But I'm a very resourceful person. And I like to really find solutions to problems. Again, why I want to become a surgeon at that time. I always figured that when there's a problem, there's a solution. So let's go find that solution. So with that mindset, it just made me become very curious about everything and how I approached it. And so well, now it is a 97 step. It's not even 54 anymore. It's actually 97. And the reason why it's 97 is because, again, as you go through and through and through, you understand that from waking up in the morning to going back to bed, everything is systemized. You wake up knowing that you got to take a shower, brush your teeth, probably eat breakfast, drive to work. All those little steps are minor steps that become routine. And so when you look at those little things that you do every day, you start to find out, okay, maybe when I wake up this time, I might be able to read a book before I go brush my teeth. And then I might be able to wake up my daughter, get her dressed for work, for school, take her to school. So then you start to build a much more defined process to define your entire system. And so it just comes from repeated routines and mistakes and correcting those mistakes as you go. As things change, the market changes, people change. So you should change. Your system should adapt to those changes.
Yeah, that's well said for sure. I guess how does that, design phase actually work for the clients?
I mean, it's a tremendous benefit. I don't like to downplay the fact that design really is a tremendous benefit, not just for the client. It's great to see the smile on the face when we're designing and we're doing all of the selections and the cool stuff. But let's not make a mistake that design really is the blueprint, literally the blueprint to your success of any project. And I wouldn't imagine any other way because now I think my experience just coming from a contractor where my very first project, didn't have no plans, I had everything in my head and figured, hey, if I have it in my head, everyone is going to understand what's happening. And, again, open up that project taught me a lot about the fact that we need to have processes. But imagine opening up your entire home, damaging all the walls, demoing out the walls. You probably start doing some wiring and you just figure you're stuck and you have no idea what to do next. And this is someone who's coming from the first time doing construction. So, I may be pardoned for it, but for folks who have been doing this for a while, who have no design in place but start construction, yes, a lot of times it comes from experience and they know what to do. But the experience from designing is that it gives the confidence not just to the builder or the remodeler, it gives the confidence to the customer. It gives the customer confidence to your vendors, to your subs. And everyone is on the same page and everyone is very communicative about pricing and schedules, and everyone understands that it takes more than just an idea to go into build or into fruition. So design is probably the biggest stake in construction that would lead to a success for you or a failure. And the good thing with design is we're able to mitigate those risks right before we start construction. And so why not do that? I always ask myself, why not? Why do people not want to do design? And even if you have no background in design, why not go find someone who can do it to make it a priority for your clients? And a lot of times your clients may not even want to do design, but they're not the industry experts to tell you how to run it. You're the ones to advise. We're advisors for construction. I guess we're just construction advisors, or you can just say people who care about other people. And I am one of them, and I don't want to put my name or my reputation on the line where, because I did not follow my process and I listened to someone else, now it is kind of coming back to bite me, right? So that's my reason.
Yep. And I know you do a promise, no change orders. So that's very bold, especially in remodeling. But, can you share like a project where that was stress tested and how the design phase prevented the scope creep?
Yeah, I mean, guarantee is 100% a guarantee. Let's not change words. It's the same guarantee you get. Just like when you go buy a fridge from Home Depot or from Walmart and they have a 2-year warranty, and within 2 years, if you call them, you might get a replacement. Not a might, you should get a replacement. We live by those words. And the reason why we live by those words is because of why our design process is critical. And the only way I can guarantee that is if we go through my process, not an architect, not a designer. And that's not even a different discussion to begin with. But going through our process of design to build, I can guarantee a no change order. You may ask, how do I do that? It's simple ways to go about it. One of the very few ways is first designing the project. The second thing is that we value engineer projects all day long. Value engineering is just a simple way of saying that we're going to look at the plans that we have created and tie a number to it. And if that number is not what you expect, or you cannot, quote unquote, afford in your budget, we're going to value engineering, meaning we're going to figure a way to make it affordable. And what that actually means is that For example, a lot of times your selections or your materials that you pick constitute about 30% of your budget or more. And so 30% of 100,000 is 30,000 to begin with. And if the absolute necessity to complete your project is to build walls, put electrical, put plumbing, put a floor, put drywall, those are the absolute necessities that are not negotiable because you don't want an uncompleted building or an uncompleted kitchen, right? So the things that we can create some variance or control the variance cost on those are your finishes, your selections. And what that means is that what we're doing is when we would go through the selections in the back end of our process, we're also providing options to pick from to sort of give you an alternative options. And those alternative options are there to, one, not to just help you pick and choose, but most importantly, we don't have to redo the process again. And so the way we guarantee that no change order is because we go through another set of questions that we select through, and we go through an options list where you pick the options where you want to sort of downgrade some of those options to. And when we go through all that and we figure that you saved 10 grand or 15 grand out of that, that becomes some of the value engineering processes that we do. And there are many other ways we do that, which I cannot share. But the one of the very few things we do from the front is just helping the clients understand that, and our prices are very transparent, okay? We don't mark up our materials, meaning if a tile is $1 per square foot, you see that on your budget sheet, $1 per square foot. And that's because we stand by our word that we guarantee that no change order, and we guarantee that we don't mark up our materials. Those are a few things we do just on the front end, just to help clients get confidence in us, knowing that we know what we're doing for sure, but we care more so for them to have a project completed than just trying to nickel and dime everything, right? Yeah.
And then how do you handle when a client changes their mind, late in the game? So how do you reconcile that without blowing the budget?
So we try not to. I mean, I highly discourage clients from changing orders. Not only because change orders is it's a pitfall for a lot of clients. And I think what a lot of clients don't understand is not necessarily the money pitfall, but also just the fact that it delays the schedule. It delays our schedule, not just the project schedule, but our schedule as well. Because again, depending on the project and what we're doing, with any change order that comes in, you always have to first get signatures, then you got to get it approved, then you got to get the funding available, then you got to order it before you install it. So there are a series of minor steps you still have to do and add to your existing schedule that keeps pushing the schedule back. And we try to discourage it because though we probably spent 6 to 8 weeks just designing, we're hoping that those decisions that were made were super, what's the word? Those decisions you made are important, of course, but were certain. And that we're hoping that none of those change along the way. And if they do, and it happens a lot, don't get me wrong, we get clients who probably want to, might say they want something and they didn't take our advice during the design, so they went that route and then they realized that we were right. So now they want to go back to that decision. It happens a lot of times. Don't get me wrong, it happens a lot of times. In that regard, we accommodate those changes. But as far as a drastic change, for example, a complete 360, we discourage it because it's not going to help us. It's not going to help them. And something about construction is this: the longer we spend on projects, and clients don't know this, the longer we spend on projects, the more expensive it gets for us. So when we're able to turn over projects quicker and hand over those projects back to clients, it helps us as a company, one, grow better because our profit margins get better. But the longer we stay on those projects, the more it costs us, especially with the overhead and stuff like that, right? So that's why we don't want to account for that, because a lot of times a change order would just account for the changes, but it doesn't account for the overhead change too, which a lot of builders or remodelers don't account for.
Yeah. And then also something basically almost unheard of is your refund unused contingency. So what gave you the confidence to do that?
Because we're confident in the build, in the design, and in our build too. We're confident in the design because again, if we're designing this project, this becomes our baby that we basically raised all the way through. So we're very confident in knowing the direction that is going to go. And yes, we applied those credits because that becomes unused funds that we take into consideration into the build. We don't make money in our design at all. It's really just to facilitate the process to get to that finish line. So we don't really, our money profits or none of that is coming from design. So there's no point in taking that into our accounts or profit center, but that gets credited into the build because the more money you have into your build, the more stuff you can do to make it look that's just as good as what they want. So we're very confident in our process and design and making sure that our clients are happy.
Yeah. So hearing this, it's obvious you're obsessed with systems. That touches my heart because I'm obsessed with systems as well. Yeah. But I imagine that level of discipline only works if your team buys in. So talk to me about, the tools, your tools. I've heard you got daily logs tied to PM bonuses, QR coded punch list, Loom onboarding for clients. It's like NASA meets HGTV, honestly. So which of these like tools or processes have been a game changer for communication?
So we use JobTread. JobTread is like our number one platform, and every single day, JobTread is releasing a update that is crazy beyond imagination. It's kind of
nothing but good things about them.
I know, right? It's just ahead of us. It's just ahead of the curve. It's ahead of the industry. Very excited to use it, and not most importantly, our clients enjoy the fact that there's clarity, there's transparency, there's communication on that level. They get blown away when we tell them about our schedule and how they can see the schedule. They get blown away about text messages that they get daily from us. And it's just one of those, with the whole AI industry and stuff and how IT is really coming up pretty fast. We've got to keep up with it. And so it has helped us tremendously, especially with our clientele. It has gained so much trust. There's not really where's my dollar going or what's happening tomorrow or what's happening today. There's this communication channel that is always open. And that gets us to become pioneers in project management and just become a staple in just knowing that clients can trust us in our process. And then in regards to like daily logs and, designers, project managers, I can tell you this, when I was working, my other job, there were no incentives. Okay. I wasn't incentivized to feel like I have to give my all. It was a great feeling knowing that you were helping someone feel better. But, human beings we need some type of motivation. So our system is built where when we prioritize communication and those key performance indicators, right, tied to incentives, we've seen the productivity of the staff and people just go up. And it's not because they want to necessarily make more money, but there's a purpose and reason behind everything. And that has become and should be the staple for communication in any aspect. And I think that when we look at it from a company standpoint and we boost morale, is what we're looking at. It helps us know that our clients are going to get the best out of each one of us. And so we like to tie that with our KPIs because that it forces us to stay the course and do the same thing all over again. So we want the client experience to be the same, if not better, to be the same throughout from one client to the next. And experiences in this case could go up or down, right, which we can't control most of. But the overall experience should be that they enjoyed working with us. They enjoyed the design process. They got what they wanted, right? We for sure can't please everyone where we have fans, like dying Raven fans. We have a couple of dying Raven fans who who absolutely loved working with us because they had experienced the worst before and they've seen a day and night in how certain things are done and are very appreciative of what we do. So we have dying Raven fans and we have people who are very, very grateful for getting the projects that they asked for at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah, that's well said. So, what signals tell you someone has the character you value when hiring?
Character, a lot of it has to do with just integrity and, the technical skills is great to know and have, and it's absolutely a necessity, but integrity is one of those things you can't teach. And the reason being is integrity goes along in every aspect of where you live and how you live. It happens at home, it happens in your bedroom, it happens in your family, when you have a relationship with your siblings. So it's something you can't teach, you have to have it. And when you have integrity, that goes beyond you, not just in your immediate circle. It goes into your jobs. It goes into your community. So it's one of those things that absolutely needed and a necessity for success here in the company. And that's one of the few things we use and figure out, are you a person of integrity? Character is another thing. I mean, character, there are different kinds of character, but the character has to fit into the culture. The character cannot be out of the culture. And the culture here is simple and straightforward. We all want to win. We all want to win. At the end of the day, we all want to win. I want to win for my family. They want to win for their family. They have, kids. I have a kid. So we all want to win. Okay, there's a reason why we're here, and the reason is to be winners. And when we become winners, the people, the clients, the projects we embark on become successful. They become winners too. So the winning attitude is number one here. And then just beyond that is enjoying your time and learning, being a sponge. Because I want to tell you this, I learn something new every day. I don't know it all. I know most of what I know, but I learn something new damn near every day. So yeah, that's just one of those few things I look for.
Perfect. Let's shift gears into growth. You're not out here blasting ads. I see that you rely heavily on SEO, view referral partners, with about 10 to 12 projects a year. How do you keep the pipeline full?
Yeah, we just started doing ads, honestly. Before that, this is strictly SEO, organic, influx. Just we believe in our product and we believe in our process again. And I think that the right people or the right people or the right person who falls in our lap will benefit from it. And so, when we do 10 projects a year, at this very moment, we can't even produce 10 projects in a year anymore, just because we don't have enough of that work. We used to be able to do 10 projects in a year. We would have about 10 to 12 projects in the pipeline for sure. But in reality, we'll have about 3 to 4 projects actually being produced that year. So there's a huge backlog of projects that we have to complete or tackle the following calendar year. And that's how we get ourselves moving. It is a steady growth. It is not a drastic, quick growth. When you grow too fast and you don't have the workforce, then you're actually losing, or you might lose you might lose your head. So our goal is obviously to increase our workforce base, hire more people in house, and stay the course. But for now, we're able to do about 3 or 4 projects a year max produced, and would have about 6 in the pipeline that will be in design.
Nice. And how do you decide which projects to take? Like, what's your filter for a good fit client?
A lot has to do with the character of the clients. A lot of it, we've dealt with all kinds of clients, straightforward clients, professional clients, clients who need directions and guidance, guided clients who know exactly what they want and not budging out. We've dealt with all kinds of clients. Avatar is just, we're not like your everyday remodeling company. So we're not Joe in a truck where you call and come fix a broken pipe or you have a broken faucet. We are not that type of company. But what we are is a design build. So when we are talking about clients and we are most likely trying to understand what their project is about, the number one thing we're doing is just understanding what the project is all about And understanding the project comes down to what is the project about? Why are we doing this project? 9 times out of 10, you have clients who want the project but not necessarily need the project. Because again, remodel is like the second biggest investment you ever make. So why would you want to go spend all that money now, unless there's a real reason to doing that? And we try to understand the purpose of the project more than anything, because that really helps us direct our attention to those priorities. The other day we had a client call because they had lead paint in their house, and they realized that their son or daughter was getting sick from that, and they didn't understand why they kept getting sick till the doctor told them that they have a lot of lead in their blood. You know, in that case, it's a no-brainer that they have to do something about it. And so, that's where we go in and do what we have to do. But in a nutshell, we're really understanding why the project needs to be done or wants to be why the client wants to do the project, and sort of align timelines and schedules with it, because at the end of the day, our projects could take anywhere between 3 months to 6 months, give and take. Design could take 6 to 8 weeks, could even take longer again. But what it really comes down to is if the goal is aligned with the time that it needs to be expected to be done, then I think we will be on the same page. But if it's anything beyond that, or not beyond, but none of those checklists, we tend to forward those clients to companies that are less busy or have other similar goals that they can help. So we don't really turn people away, but I always have referrals of people that can go to.
Nice. And then also something I wanted to touch on was ADU friendly zoning in Columbus. What's happening in the space right now, and what do you think needs to change to unlock more ADUs in Ohio?
Yeah, man. ADUs is luckily one of the hot topics here, especially in the Midwest. I'm not sure where you are.
I'm in New Jersey.
New Jersey? Okay. In the Midwest, New Jersey is probably very common. So East Coast and West Coast, ADUs are it's probably one of the easiest terminologies to understand. Here in the Midwest, if you do mention ADUs to anyone, they have no freaking clue what you're talking about, right? But then when you mention a mother-in-law suite, then it rings a bell, right? So ADUs is the real technical terminology for buildings, and it stands for accessory dwelling units. And what that really is that you have a primary home and then you have a secondary home that you could build on the same lot. And that's simply what an ADU is. And it could be an attached or detached structure to your property. Now, in the Midwest here, we are specifically in Columbus, Franklin County. We're in the process of including ADUs in the building code. Right now, if you want to build an ADU in Columbus, you have to apply for a variance, which takes about 6 to 9 months to get approval before you actually get your building permits. So it discourages a lot of people from moving forward with that process. So with the whole, and I volunteered time and hours with a nonprofit company here in Columbus they set up a cohort of builders, designers, architects, engineers, home health, companies, because the benefit was not obvious to a lot of people, and especially the city. And now that it has created a little bit of a buzz, it's going to help a ton of people. A lot of people are going to benefit from ADUs here in the Midwest because our baby boomer generations are all getting to that age where they're either retired or about to retire or have retired and can't take care of themselves anymore. And, a lot of times when you are, when you're a son or a daughter of a parent who is aging and a lot of times don't have the assistance that they need, you tend to think a lot about your parents in that realm. And especially in the Midwest, there's a lot of baby boomer generations here because, again, you might have people who retire here or might just stay in the same family home they built from in the 30s. So, when you look at that aspect, I've seen and heard, and people have reached out to us countless number of times for ADUs. And One of the very common trend we see is, my parents live in this house and they want to downsize into a smaller home, but we don't want them to live in somewhere else. So we're thinking of building an ADU in the back of our house. But before we build that, we need to sell this house, then get those funds to buy, then build into it. So there's a lot of stipulation behind ADUs that is very beneficial. That my goal is that we're going to make this a household staple for a lot of people, a lot of benefits. I mean, there's so many benefits to ADUs that why wasn't this thought about before, And so I'm really looking forward to that happening and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm excited for that stage of this industry.
Cool. And then a lot of remodelers listening are still stuck in the phase of working, 70 plus hours a weeks, trying to figure out systems. What are the 3 things you tell someone who wants to build a business like yours?
I still do 60 hours.
Yeah, you never really leave that, huh?
It doesn't really go down. I think it is streamlined now a little bit. It's definitely streamlined a lot more than before, but I still put in a little bit more hours because I'm just trying to take the company to a different level. That's all. Nothing really personal. One thing I would encourage other contractors is just, to look into processes and really understand. I do understand it's so cliche to say systems and processes these days, but I tell you this, the next time you want to make a meal and you kind of like take all the ingredients and just throw it in there and then just stir the pot, you might realize that either you undercook or you just didn't do it right. And think of it the same way in your process, which is just, systems and processes are just the ingredients for you to make the best food. And so, when you take those things into place, it's only there to help. And like I said, you can start with one thing. And the first checklist I had in my system was how I woke up, how I did my daily routine. And that was me waking up, taking a shower or whatever, or going to the gym. Those are checklists. And I know we're humans, we might hate it because it's extra work, but you start with something very small and kind of like build from there. Create like a systemized routine of how you do things and then apply that to your company or to your clients. Look at how that helped with communication, because systems is all communications and nothing more. So if you're able to just communicate with your clients, that is a system or a process, and you've done the first step. Now you just have to keep improving upon that system because it keeps changing. People keep changing, and maybe you do meet different kinds of people. So you kind of have to build upon that system to adapt to more people that come in. I'm pretty sure we don't have the same kind of clientele every day, but we sure can control the outcome of every clientele when they come in. So, yeah, start with job trade, maybe. Start with job trade. How about that?
All right, George. The one we ask every guest here. So if you had to start over tomorrow with just your skills, your mindset, and $1,000 in the bank, what would you do to rebuild Y2 Design and Build?
Like I said, this was luck. I will not restart because I don't know how it happened. This is all luck. I'm being honest with you. But if I had $1,000, I'll give you two easy things you can do. Network with people, and networking is free. Or you can take someone to call like breakfast or coffee date, whatever you want to call it. Take someone out. Just take someone else. You have $1,000, you might spend $8 to $10 on coffee, but build relationships is the key, and do it all over again, every day, every other day. Build relationships with architects, designers, realtors, other fellow builders, or even vendors. Just network and build relationships. I would do that with $1,000, and I will probably throw in $500 for ads.
George,
you get something out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, George, this has been awesome, man.
No, thanks for having me, man.
Love how you've turned precision and process into profit driving differentiator. And I think a lot of remodelers need to hear that today, especially about systems. Highly recommend building systems. Put it somewhere, put it in your notes. Just always have your systems written out.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to check out your work, where can they follow you and see your amazing work as well?
I try to post every day. Honestly, I don't, and I have to do better. But Y2 Design Build is our Instagram page, and I do a lot of behind the scenes of projects and our processes and things. I'm never always posting the pretty stuff on there because I like to engage and create transparency, how we do things and how things can fail. I post my failures sometimes. I post my successes sometimes when I do remember, but I try to just be natural and not sell anything or be confrontational about anything. So the easiest way to go about watching me or watching our process or our journey overall is on Instagram. Y2 Design and Build.
Awesome. And if you're a remodeler who wants to scale like the pros, get consistent projects and predictable profit, grab our free $2 million BADASS Remodeler Playbook at badtobadass.com. I'm Romario Martin. This is the BADASS Remodeler Podcast, where we turn blue-collar grit into badass businesses. Catch you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in to the BADASS Remodeler Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and pulled some real no-bullshit takeaways to help you grow your business and your mindset. If this episode hit home, do me a favor. Share it with another remodeler or business owner who's out there grinding to build something better. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss a conversation that could change your game. And if you or someone you know has a badass story to share, please contact us at badtobadass.com. We'd love to hear it because your wins can inspire the next builder up. I'm Romario Martin, reminding you to keep building bold, keep leading strong, and stay badass.